Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be looking at what are the next steps that one should do, both as a student who is graduating from 12th standard this year and as a parent whose son or daughter is graduating from 12th standard this year. The board examinations have got cancelled for predominantly a good lot of boards, right? Starting with the CBSE, ICSE, UP board, Maharashtra board, Rajasthan board, and many more are likely to follow suit. Now that this has happened, let's evaluate two scenarios. Scenario in which you end up getting a very good marks in the board examination thanks to the evaluation criteria that the CBSE board is likely to come up with. And what if you ended up with not so good marks? What are the things that you need to do so that you end up with a good college admission, right? Let's get started. Let's look at the good scenario. We do not know the criteria as yet. The Supreme Court has asked the boards to come up with a criteria in 2 weeks' time and also release the results in a much shorter time after that. So in 2 weeks, we'll know what is going to be the admission criteria. And in a short while, probably 2 to 3 weeks from that point in time, you'll know what you have actually scored in it. But at this point in time, if one were to make a guess about what the criteria could be, let's look at what the board has done, the CBSE board has done for the 10th standard examination. 10th standard, again, they did not have a board examination. They come up with a criteria for evaluation. The criteria for evaluation rewards people who had been consistently good throughout the 10th standard. 20 marks for internals has remained unchanged. The balance 80 marks, which you would have got for writing the board examination, has been split into 3 components. The first component is 10 marks for your unit test, what you scored in the unit test. Second component is 30 marks for what you scored in the half-yearly examination. And the third component is 40 marks for what you scored in the pre-board examination, the revision examinations essentially. So if you're a student who has been consistent all through, who scored well in the unit examination, probably got full marks in unit examination, got 95 plus in half yearly in every subject, and also scored 95 plus or 90 plus in your pre-board examinations, then you are rewarded, and rightly so. So you're likely to, if you know that you have done well in all of these examinations, in 10th standard, you're sure to get very high scores. In 12th standard, it's going to follow a similar formula. The breakup might be different, but they can only give you marks based on what has happened in the past during the year. Probably what you scored in 10th could also get included, but it is going to be your past performance. If for a moment you realize that your past performance is good all through, you do not have to worry. It's a good thing to happen for you, because look at it, even if you had done consistently well, your preparation would have been outstanding. But on the day of the examination, if something did not go your way, your marks in the board examination could have been lesser than what you expected. Now that this process is in place, the board examination effort, the burden has been removed from your shoulder. You're now free to look at what next. There are 2 kinds of admissions that happen. Let's assume that you got a good marks in the CBSE or any board that you're studying, your board examination marks. There are colleges which admit people, which admit their students based on their board examination marks. You're likely to get into those colleges because you have done well all through. And there's a good chance that the competition this year is going to be lesser for the simple reason many students bank on scoring well in the board examination and do not necessarily do well consistently through the year. So they are going to be at a disadvantage vis-a-vis you. So you're likely to land up with an admission in a better college than it would have been under normal circumstances. Having said that, now that the board is over and you know you're likely to get good marks, let's forget how much that marks is, because at this point you do not know. Focus on what next. There are premier institutions which typically admit people using entrance examination. Be it the IITs, triple IITs, NIT, they go through the JEE route. If it is medical, obviously it is NEET UG. And if you're looking at science and arts and commerce kind of courses, there are colleges which are local colleges which are associated with universities in your town, in your state. They will admit people predominantly based on board examinations. But there are premier institutions. See, the IIT Madras offers a course called in Humanities and Economics, and they offer a test called Humanities and Science Entrance Examination, HSEE, right? So these premier institutions typically admit DU, if this year we do not know, they're likely to have an entrance test if it goes with CUCET, if CUCET exists at all, right? This year, thanks to pandemic, they may or may not conduct the Central University Common Entrance Test. The Central Universities are premier places to study. Delhi University is a great place to study, right? Studying in a college in your local city is one thing. Studying in these premier places are another thing. It holds good for engineering. It holds good for medicine. It holds good for arts, science, commerce, everything. So now that the board weight is removed of you, focus on preparing for the relevant entrance examination and try and ace that. That's what I would recommend. Let's look at the other scenario, because this People who have scored well, you are rewarded well, and you're doing well. So there's nothing much one can advise there. Just be very careful about the kind of colleges you select. A premier institution makes a world of difference. I'll give you an example. Getting into an average college into computer science BTech versus getting into, let's say, an IIT Madras or IIT Delhi into, let's say, in BTech in like aeronautical sciences or BTech in like ceramics. I would probably bat for BTech in ceramics in IIT Delhi or IIT Madras than going to an average local college and doing BTech computer science. You can pick up your computing skills any day. A premier institution will actually take you much further in your career than doing that particular course. So be flexible. If you want to be in engineering, good. But within engineering, don't be very focused on saying, I just want to do this particular thing. A little more flexibility in the courses that you take will put you into premier institutions. And that is what you should be aiming at. Let's look at the second scenario. What if you expected to do well in the board examination? There are many of us who are late bloomers. We'll say that we probably will do the unit test and other things here and there. We would have been a mooner. We would have been participating in debates and other things. We would have started preparing for the board seriously only from Jan, February. So the first couple of revision tests would not have gone as well as we expected. We would have put in a lot of effort. Had the board examination existed, we would have scored really well. But now that is not to be there, we do not know what the board examination marks are going to be. The first thing I want you to do is quit guessing what the criteria is going to be. That's really not going to help. The board will decide, they'll tell you what it is, and you're going to get a number. But if you have a reasonable inkling that that number is not what you would have got had you written the board examination, look at what are the next course of action that you can take. Right? Obviously, taking the board examination again is a possibility, but let's keep that for a separate video as to whether you should go for a second, whether you should be actually be writing the board examination when it becomes available. We'll focus on getting into good colleges without necessarily taking the examination again. Step one that you're going to be doing is there are still quite a lot of good colleges, many premier institutions that admit students based only on the entrance examination that they conduct. Right? For example, IIT Madras, for its humanities and sciences program, will use the HSE admission test. Many programs that we probably are not even aware of. The premier institutions like the IIM Indore, they have been running an undergraduate, postgraduate integrated program called Integrated Program in Management, which is a 5-year program which gives you a 3-year undergraduate degree and tops it up with a 2-year MBA, which is what everyone graduates from IIM Indore does. Right? You do a 3-year BSc BCom from a college in your city, or you would do a BTech from an IIT or from a local engineering college, and then you'll write the CAT, get into IIM and graduate. Getting into IIM Indore through the CAT route is far more difficult than getting into this integrated program, for the simple reason the integrated program is not a very well advertised program as the regular programs by the IIMs. So therefore, not too many people will be applying to it. So dig these programs out, prepare for their entrance examination. If you've already been preparing for entrance examination like the JEE, like the NEET, UG, continue and do good justice to it, because you can shift from a college which is a local college, which is what you would have got, to a premier institution by just doing very well in your entrance examination. And people who are coming from any background, for example, the IPM 80 is one such examination. You could come from arts and science background, you could come from PCM, physics, chemistry, math background, you could come from a biology background. Anyone can write this IPM admission test. Right? It is conducted by IIM Indore, and it has taken, the score is used by Nirma University for their IPM program, is used by IIM Rohtak for their IPM program. In addition to that, the newer IIMs, IIM at Bodh Gaya, IIM at Jammu have started this program. They have their own separate examination called JIPMAT. So I'm just giving you some few examinations which admit purely on the basis of your entrance performance. So renew your entrance performance. If you haven't started entrance preparation for this, you just apply to these programs. The board is something that you can't do anything right now. Don't worry about whether you want to write the board a second time. Focus on getting an admission through the entrance examination route. If you haven't started preparation, it's still not too late to start preparation, because many a times for these entrance examination, you'll have a bunch of examinations that you can take in which there is going to be a 70% commonality in what is tested. Leaving the NEET UG, leaving the JEE program out, many other entrance examinations are going to have components of quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and analytical reasoning. This will account for the big chunk of it. The lion's share of what is tested, 70% is going to come from this. So you prepare for IPM 80, you've probably done justice halfway through for a CL80 examination. You've done enough justice for the HSE examination. There are going to be some differences. They will have some X more. Something will have, let's say, something on political science. Another examination might have some general knowledge thrown in. But verbal, quant, analytical is common. You prepare for one examination, you do justice to it. You'll be able to do justice to many of these entrance tests in one go. So start that preparation. it's still not too late to start preparation. Don't say that, hey, I'm starting only in June, these examinations are in July. Many of these examinations are likely to get postponed on account of this pandemic too. So you will have adequate time. Many people will not be doing justice to this preparation. Our sister concern to Firma and 2IM, they run a program for the IPM admission test. They have a self-study program, which is an online program. They also have a live online program. Choose the one that makes sense for you. Get started with this. It's going to help you with many other entrance examinations. Step 2. This is a year, which is true even for any year, but particularly this year, if you think that your score is not going to be good, is to cast a wider net. What do you mean by cast a wider net? Apply to as many places as possible. If you planned on applying to X colleges, I would say apply to 3X colleges this year, right? What all? It's not just colleges. Look at newer courses. Look at newer schools that you would have probably not even thought about. There are like gems institutions which are like phenomenal, the Navaratna equivalent kind of institutions which are there, which probably we are not aware of. Give an example. How many of us are aware of this IPM program at the IIM Indore? How many of us know of schools like, for example, there's a college called SICRI, right? Central Electrochemical Research Institute in Karaikudi. It's a government institution. This admits people for chemical and electrochemical engineering. It's a premier institution in the country for that program. Do we know what's the admission criteria for it? Do we know that does it go through the JEE route or does it go through Anna University route? So there are many such institutions which are there, and there are beautiful programs that are hiding there. So essentially do research on this, widen the scope and apply to many of these programs. Second, redraw paths, which essentially means that you would have thought about getting into, let's say, computer science engineering, and then coming out of it, doing MTech in IIT, and then subsequently writing the CAT and going into an IIM, right? If you realize that your computer science engineering is not going to come from a good college, basically because you have not done justice to your board examination, quickly recast your path, right? Go and sign up for a BSc Math, BSc Chemistry, BSc Physics in a good college in your city instead of going into an average engineering college. Do 3 years of that program. Prepare extensively well for your CAT and crack the CAT and get into an IIM. So you may have to redraw your path. Have your final goal in mind. I want to become a doctor. I want to become an MBA. I want to become an engineer, and I want to go abroad and do an MTech and a PhD in a US school. Get your final destination right and redraw the paths based on how things pan out. Third thing, look at new geographies. Right? Many of us, if we'll think that if you're an engineering graduate, I'm taking that as an example, we'll essentially say that I'll apply to local engineering colleges in my state and look at whatever is the admission criteria for it. I'll take the JEE and check out whether JEE mains is good, and if I qualify for JEE advanced, I'll go into an IIT. We will not even looking at what is the admission criteria, let's say for Trivandrum College of Engineering or like Calicut Engineering College, which are like Kerala institutes. Do they take people from outside state? A Kerala student will apply to that. But let's say you're from Maharashtra, if you're from Tamil Nadu, how many of us look to see what are the admission criteria for programs outside our state? They might have an outside state quota. And many people will not be applying to these programs, that you would have difficulty with your score getting, let's say, a mechanical or industrial engineering course in your state. But because the outside state quota might not be highly in demand or not too many people will be applying for it, might end up getting an electrical engineering or even a computer science from one of those colleges. The thing I'm saying is be open to newer geographies within India. Explore, find out what are the courses you're going to be doing. And the last thing, which is equally important, is iterate. Right? Get one admission moment your board examination scores are there. Keep a safety net. So you know you, and for parents, your daughter or son is going to do an undergraduate degree at this place. That's one thing. Just safeguard it. Don't settle for it. Right? This year, the admission process is going to be like moving every time. For the simple reason, the moment JEE results are out, a lot of engineering seats are going to become vacant. The moment like NEET UG is out, a lot of biology and botany courses are going to become vacant. So you may not have got, let's say, if you're in Chennai, you would have gotten to XYZ college to do, let's say, BSc. And then people who got into Loyola for physics, chemistry, math, they would have gotten into, let's say, a good engineering college when the engineering admission opens. Some of them would have in turn got admission into IITs. That from this XYZ college in Chennai, you could move into Loyola College to do a BSc Physics. So that's iteration 2. You would have also applied to these engineering colleges. And some of these people who would have gotten into an engineering college would have gone into IIT Madras or like any of the IITs. That the opening opens there, that you might be able to shift from Loyola to an engineering college, which is a reputed engineering college. So you may have to iterate this year. Get an admission, keep it as a safety net, and don't be averse to the fact that you've applied to many of these places. As better institutions start providing you admission, shift from one to the other. Probably the third admission is what you're finally going to settle for, but that's perfectly fine in the overall scheme of things. And the way things are panning out this year, that things get delayed and not all admissions are going to happen at the same time. And the fact that we don't want to be anxious about whether you'll get an admit or not. Get one, move on to the next, probably move on to the third, might even be the fourth one where you get an admit. It's absolutely fine. At the end of the day, if you get to a course which is a very reputed institution, that is going to keep you in good stead. Lastly, again, in this case also, seek guidance, right? One is, see, the internet is available with so much information which is there, but many times we do not know what to search for. There's this institution called indiacollegefinder.org. They provide you with information about all different courses, alerts, admission alerts is what they call it. It makes sense to tie up with them, sign up for that program, even right now. In this intervening period between, let's say, June and October or November this year, which is when the admissions window is going to close, you may come across enough institutions which you would not have even heard of, which are like brilliant institutions. Being aware of it, knowing when their application window opens, what test to write for them, will put you into a lovely institution. Right? Best wishes. It's not over yet. It's just the beginning. It's completely up to you as to how you shape your career. Entrance examination, wider net are probably two of the safest, or what to say, time-tested methods to get into a good college. Best wishes. Before you leave, I want you to do two things. One, sign up at online.maxtute.com to get started with CBSE Class 10 Math online tuitions. It takes all of 5 minutes and less than 3 steps to get started. And second thing, I want you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so that you get notified every time a new video is uploaded. Spread the word about this channel to your friends and classmates.